We continue to follow breaking news out of Northeast Georgia, where we just learned there's been an explosion at Georgia Guidestones. New video just in shows damage to the Guidestones in Elberton County. The GBI and local officials are investigating this explosion. They say someone detonated an explosive device.
What's he gonna do, Mama?
He's getting his pool cue. Dynamite!
Around 4 a.m., the Guidestones are located on Highway 77 in Elberton. And
A dynamite!
Video shows the moment the Georgia Guidestones in Elbert County blew up. This is surveillance video sent by the GBI from just after 4 o'clock this morning. Video also shows what appears to be a silver or gray car speeding away from the scene. Right now, local, state, and federal agencies are working to determine who's behind that explosion. The attraction was unveiled in 1980 and has drawn many people over the years. The man whose company maintains the site says vandalism has happened before, but never like this.
We actually had to install cameras several years ago after the vandalism got so bad. But, you know, it does break my heart. You know, if you don't like the message that was written on them, you know, that's understandable. That's your prerogative. But, you know, there's no reason to take it away from other people that might.
Crews demolished the remaining stones over safety concerns. If you know anything about the explosion, authorities ask that you come forward. You can remain anonymous.
A dynamite! 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 A dynamite!
That is not me in that automobile. I have an alibi. I was nowhere near the site. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Professor Hamamoto. It is July 7, year 2022, 3 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Welcome, one and all. For those of you who are in the live stream, you're going to get to see that information at the beginning. It might be deleted. Last Tuesday, I had some copyrighted material from Tokyo Ghoul that I had to take out there. They didn't give me a copyright strike. They gave me the option to delete it. But those of you who are in the live stream got to see it. So hopefully the intro will remain. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of exciting post 4th of July fireworks taking place, right? And I wanted to devote today's session entirely to this one episode. Is this a harbinger, if I can use that term, right? Maybe we'll work in Rabbi Jonathan Kahn to the discussion here, but could this be a harbinger of something that's afoot? Could it be a false flag? I mean, what are the implications here? And in preparing for this talk, because this only was announced, reported yesterday, I was trying to ask myself, how should I approach it? Should I do it? Go back to the Babylonian, right? By the way, not long before this report came to me, I had posted on my Patreon and then later on the Facebook a couple of excerpts from a really good documentary called Billy the Beast that was released in 2018 that talked about the hidden dimension, if you will, the occult dimension to exoteric politics and how important it is. It's foundational, really, in understanding everything that's taking place in the American Republic in the past as well as currently. So I thought about this long and hard, and you know, I've done a little bit of study in the area, nothing to the point where I could qualify as an expert. By the way, I'm going to be on a show with Freeman, who's been doing esoteric study and metaphysical inquiry for years and years, and I think even before the the huge deluge on TubeView with all these Snap experts. He's been at it for a long time. So I think we're going to be doing this tomorrow morning. I haven't checked my mailbox because I've been preparing, but I think it's tomorrow. I don't think it's live. It's going to be delayed. And I'll get that information out to you so that you can see it. And hopefully it'll appear on YouTube, although I don't think Freeman has much of a, if any, YouTube presence. So anyway, that's happening. And I'm just telling you that because I'm going to be asking him about what went down the other day. And I'm going to ask his perception on it because he's more qualified to speculate. And he's always got some fascinating insights on various and sundry related matters and themes and subjects. And this one is just an incredible, and I've been getting phone calls since yesterday through today. And I said, hey, I can't talk. I have to prepare for my show. But everybody is asking the same question, what went down? So hopefully I'm not going to pretend to be present a definitive answer here, but I think I can contextualize what went down outside of Atlanta. By the way, just coincidentally, I was reading this book recommended to me by a friend. It's Two Babylons, and I in turn recommend it to you. It's really inexpensive on The Retailer That Ate the World. Okay, I'll say it, Amazon. It's by a very learned gentleman by the name of Alexander Hislop. I don't know anything more than that, but it's a reprint. It's a well, I don't think it's a facsimile, but it's a reprint. It's excellent. This person here, I think he might be a reverend or a biblical scholar. Hislop obviously has a great deal of training, not just in theology, but in ancient archaeology. And albeit he is anti-Rome, he keeps talking about popery. He's anti-papist, anti-pope. He's Protestant. He's a Free Church of Scotland, and an arch critic of the Roman Catholic Church of his day. And maybe during his time, they were particularly antagonistic towards people of his Protestant denomination up in Scotland. And that's appropriate today, Scotland, because there is a Scottish connection in what went down the other day, which I'll spell out in a moment. And keep in mind that it was on this channel where I went through every one of the novels, the 007 novels featuring James Bond, who turned out by the end of the series, I think it was something like 27 novels. I might have a count off slightly, but quite a number of them. And I read them chronologically. But by the end of the series, Ian Fleming reveals him to be Scottish, and he implies very strongly that he is a Knight Templar, which is why in the final book, even though he's recommended by Q, or is it M, his boss, for a knighthood, he's already decided, I'm not going to take it because he already is a knight. And then I speculated, I still haven't found the information, I speculated that Ian Fleming himself, who is of Scottish background, might not himself have been a Knight Templar, because he did, and that's for the biographers to figure out. I haven't had a chance to go back and check that out. That's a working hypothesis, though, based on the fact that shortly before he hit it big in the popular literature world, he had, or maybe shortly afterwards, he bought an estate in Jamaica, which is a British colonial, not strictly colonial. There's a special term for it, by the way. There's about 150 of these today in 2022, which is really important for this discussion, which I'll get into if I can remember with all my digressions upon digressions. But Ian Fleming went to Jamaica, which was a colony, sugar plantation. The industry had pretty much peaked at that point. It was still robust, but it had peaked at that point. And he was able to purchase an estate, I guess, of a former sugar grower that went back, a generation or two. And from there, he was a gentleman author at the private estate that he named Golden Eye. Yes, Golden Eye. He was into precious metals, right? He's a Templar after all. He might be. He's a banker after all. That's what they are. They're a military order, a religious order, but they're also a banking entity. And as we laid it out, the Caribbean is today in the 21st century is the geographic location of the global banking system. All right. The Panama Papers were released a few years ago, and some people didn't like the term, especially Panamanians, so they renamed it, but it's the same phenomenon, this huge secret banking, not now, it's been exposed, huge network that is really underpinning the global economy, and the exposure of those papers, I would hazard to guess, is largely responsible for this rollout of the biowarfare weaponry to distract us and to tie us up until they, meaning the bankers, the Templars, so they can tie it up and kind of distract us, wrap us up for a while. So I've gone through that. I've also talked about prophecy. We've talked about the destruction of the Twin Towers, 9/11. Jonathan Cahn, who I think is trained as a rabbi, he's got a Harbinger 2 book. I haven't read this one. I've finished number 1. And I wonder what he might have to say. And we're going to hear all and see and read all kinds of analyses in the days to come, because this is a signal event in American history, possibly world history. And let's see if we can come up with something that will that'll contribute to the discussion, to the breakdown, to the analysis, and hopefully will hasten the demise of Babylon the Great, right? Maybe this signals the fact that Babylon the Great has fallen, as it's stated in the Bible, right? Maybe the prophecy is coming to bear. We don't know. And if the prophecy is coming true, not only is there an intervention, divine intervention by God, but there's always a human element, because we are creatures of free will. And there are human organizations, entities that hasten these revolutionary transformations in societies, far-flung societies all over the world, right? From Scandinavia to East Asia, China, Japan, the Philippines, Southern Africa, you get the idea. The four corners of the earth, societies, civilizations are all, Babylon itself is the prime example, are always in the process of growth and decay. I'm not talking about the cliche of decline and fall. I'm talking about this process that is biblical in nature, and that it has been documented time and time again of how the temples are built and then the temples fall down, right? Without getting into heavy theology here, I'm going to try to stick to the history, right? So we've done the literature on that. And then, of course, I hope you found the opening segment somewhat. If you're not a boomer, you might be baffled, a baby boomer, because if you were a boomer, then you would have known about Good Times and That's My Mama. There was a bunch of sitcoms that came out, which, by the way, I wrote the first and best book on television, Situation Comedy. I devote a whole chapter to JJ and to Thelma and Louise, the mother of the family, right? They were just sort of a hard-working, Black working class family trying to make it through the good times and the bad times. That's JJ who coined that phrase, dynamite. Remember that? That's why I inserted it. If I have time, I'll show you an excerpt from either it's The Good Guys or The Family Guy or The Simpsons. I don't know what it is, but they're commenting on Good Times, the sitcoms. Right. I won't bore you with reading this back, but I'm reading this. This is published in '89. It was really prescient. It was really, I'm proud of myself. Pride comes before the fall. So I'm not going to belabor that point. But we also have, as part of the artwork for this talk on YouTube, the person on the left side, you might not recognize, because usually he was presented as a jolly, hale, well-met fellow. I don't know if he went to Oxford or Cambridge, but he's got the floppy hair, and he gulled most. Maybe he stole the election. I don't know, but he came into the prime minister in England. We're talking about the prime minister position by pretending that he was for Brexit, but he was just a hack of the globalist bankers, right? His name is Boris Johnson, right? And I don't want to make fun of people's names, but he's the first Englishman I ever heard of whose name was Boris. His given name, Johnson, his Christian name, Johnson. Yeah, okay, I get it. But his given name, Boris, oh my, was his dad a Bolshevik? I wouldn't doubt it. And the Bolsheviks are globalists. We know that by now. They are globalists. They're oft-times Sabbatine Frankists, and a lot of them, as I said, got infiltrated London's literary circles, metaphysical, esoteric circles, and government, administrative, military, police circles, and also they came to New York City and they infiltrated academia, New School of Social Research right before the outbreak of World War II. I'm reading about that now. They're the Frankfurt School in exile, in essence. But as we're finding out, and I found a new book, by the way, that helps to substantiate my hypothesis. I love it when that happens. You come up with a hypothesis and you find all this information that supports it. Then it becomes a theory. That's how theory building works. And it's written by someone who's a leftist. I'll talk about that later. I'm getting ahead of myself. So we have all that information there. And I have been talking about that for the last few weeks as if I had been anticipating some kind of momentous event to take place, some sort of dramatic event on par of 9/11, but not at the cost of human life or even injury, right? I was feeling something was brewing, was afoot. So I've given you all this background of the Sabbatean, the secret society that took over the Mattachine Society, or behind the Mattachine Society. It was organized along communist, Bolshevik, Franco-Sabbatean metaphysics. And the Mattachine Society is today lionized in so-called gay history by people who's the historian of gaydom, Martin Duberman. There's some other people who specialize in gay lesbian history, but they're celebrated. Point is, the Mattachine Society, Harry Hay, the commie, and Grandpa Walton, the gay commie. I mean, they're heroes, just like the little bitch slap fest over at the White Horse Saloon, right? Stonewall, yeah, that's what it is. I'm trying to blot it. There's a whole mythology around gaydom, right? That's self-congratulatory, that we were supposed to celebrate with them last month, right? So I did my bit and tried to lay out the whole occultic, Bolshevik, Sabbatine, Frankist underlay that brought us to this debased point in American civilization. But I also held out hopes that once we understand this, we'll be able to turn it around, not only turn it around, but to lift it up and to elevate it and to rebuild and regrow, not reset, but regrow American civilization along the lines that we want, not the Sabbatine Frankists, not the secret societies, not the bankers, but the people who are of the land. And it's going to happen. So with that preface, let me get into some historical specifics, and let me suggest where this opposition to all these different groups might be coming from. And they've been here all along, but they've never been understood or regarded in the way that I am presenting them as the loyal American opposition to the globalists, to the bankers, right? And they're from the South. Just like, if you've been watching this YouTube show of mine for the last year and a half, I have always put great store in that the revival of the American Republic was going to be coming from the South, or as I like to say it, or as we like to say it, from the South. The South. It's going to come from the South. And sure enough, it might be coming from the great state of Georgia. Okay, let me be more specific by sharing you this postcard. It was a stereoscope. In like the late 19th century, someone figured out how to do stereoscopic photograph. It kind of went out of fashion. And then if you're a boomer, you remember those little stereoscopic plastic toys with these images. But that was a common way of exhibiting or showing or sharing photographs in the late 19th century. And that's why I'm trying to explain it, because it looks kind of weird. It looks like it could be Photoshop, but it's a stereoscopic black and white photo. I don't know the process exactly. We need a photo technician to really explain it. But the point is, here is a photographic rendition, not a painting, of a Knights Templar conclave in, guess where? Atlanta, Georgia. And now this is this is the information. This is at the New York Public Library. It's one of their holdings. But the best information they have is that this stereoscopic photo, and that's a Knight Templars. You can't see it. You'd have to go do a close-up of it. But that's a Knights Templar gathering, I guess, in the Civic Square in downtown Atlanta, around between 1860 and 1870, according to the archivist, right? So that's, we're establishing a history here. Okay. Let me move to let's see here, the Cornell University Library, because we're showing that this is not a bunch of silly men in archaic uniforms and funny hats with feathers on them parading around in all their medals and sashes. No, we're talking about what I am speculating are the people who are behind I won't say they're behind the demolition of the Georgia cromlech, but I'll say that the political milieu that they have been operating in since the time of the American Civil War and a little bit before that is still very much alive and strong. And that includes not just white men, but also black men, because they are people of the soil. They are also, America is their home. Georgia is their home state. They're proud of it. They got, 5, 6, 7, 8 generations in certain cases of family who are rooted to the soil. So do you think they're going to let Klaus Schwab and someone in Geneva, Switzerland, or the NATO headquarters dictate to them what they're going to do? And again, I'm not placing the blame on these people who gather in these fraternal organizations. I'm not placing the blame, but I am saying that martial culture and that metaphysical tradition, that esoteric tradition where you initiated to different grades and steps and degrees of knowledge, is alive and well, and it's been alive and well continuously all that time. And this is important because the bright brains at NATO headquarters do not understand American civilization the way they think they do. They think we're a bunch of philosophical science materialists who have been completely bought up by, beginning with Darwin and Marx, and then later Einstein and the whole physics revolution. And then you got a bunch of people come from India and China who are the intellectual science materialist coolies. And so the people who were studying America said, okay, the time is ripe. America has gone completely atheist. They believe in Tyson DeGrasse and the science man, and they don't believe in God. We've destroyed the churches. We've infiltrated them. All the young people are majoring in biology instead of the humanities, and we brought a bunch of Asians in here who have zero understanding of the foundations of American civilizations. We're going to pounce on them, but they miscalculated because they didn't know that generations of people in funny hats have been waiting for just this moment in 2022. And that's why their monument to their Luciferian project, call it Babylon if you want, that's why it was blown to smithereens after July 4th. Okay, let me spell it out for you. Now, this is a book I think it's still on the stacks at Cornell University, an Ivy League, but also a land grant university. They might have pulled it off now because they're taking a lot of these books out because they don't want people just kind of browse around and find them by accident. And they're digitizing, and so I'm gathering this material. Here's our history, ladies and gentlemen. It might be, yeah, this is a close-up of it. That's the frontispiece was the first part. Let me put my head in there so you know that I'm still with you. But this is the close-up of the frontispiece. It's called the Rosicrucians, right? Can you read it? I can't. I'm going to have to put it on a large screen. Yeah, their rites and mysteries with chapter, ancient rite, and serpent worshippers. Okay, that's kind of scary. Right? Explanation of the mystic symbols represented in the monuments, and you can read the rest by Hargrave Jennings. I don't know who that is, but we can look him up. Probably an American, and he donated this book to the Cornell University Library because all the ruling class people, mostly Protestants, would have membership in this type of organization. And by the way, when I speak today, I'm going to use these terms interchangeably. I know it's incorrect, okay? But I'll use these terms interchangeably: Rosicrucian, Freemason, Scottish Rite, Knights Templar. But what I'm talking about is these secret societies that have been waiting for the end game as rolled out by the United Nations and its military enforcement arm, NATO. And they've been waiting for the treachery, the betrayal of the Pentagon people of their own country, the treasonous behavior and the bankers as well, of the Sabbatean Frankist order. And they've been waiting for this. This is a hypothesis. We'll see what really happens. But anyway, this is a book on the shelves of Cornell University, and they're on the shelves of every major Ivy League school, and University of California has tons of them too. I have a lot of the scans of them, of these different. See, this one goes back to what? It says 1870. It's published in 1870. All right. I don't know when this book was donated to the university, but it's been read by generations of people who have attended the secret societies at Cornell, at least. But we're also talking about the other Ivies and the other, maybe even at University of Georgia. There's literature. I bet there is, and I would like to teach the University of Georgia for 1 year and go to their archives, their papers, and find this whole history out. Because no one is doing it that I know of. You know why? Because they have been distracted by the foundation saying, we're only going to support doctoral dissertations in gay studies, or we're only going to give you money or offer you an assistant professorship in race and ethnicity or in lesbianism, right? We do not want you to study the real history of America and of the West in general, going back to Babylon, right? And of course, it would include Asia, because remember, all these characters, the Scottish, the bankers, they were trying to get to India, right? They said, "Oh, America's not a bad place." I'm exaggerating, but they already had a global concept. So here's one of the books on the bookshelf, and you can see and if you think I'm lying, here's the book plate. Whoever Benno Olowi is, there was a Harvard president by the name of Benno. I can't remember, but I associate the name Benno with someone who comes from an elite ruling class family, old America, colonial American. But his name's Loewy. Maybe he was a, Bavarian Illuminati. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But we have some information here that we can go on. His dates, 1854, 1990. So, okay, we found out he donated this book before he died, which was in 1919. And you can see it's at the Cornell Library, like I stated. I'm not lying. I put it in there so that you would know I'm just not pulling this stuff out. Now, this is interesting. This is in the book, too. It's an illustration. I don't know if it's pen or it looks like a pen drawing. But what does that look like? That looks like the Georgia cromlech, doesn't it? Or Stonehenge, right? By the way, there are many Stonehenges. If you've listened to David Icke over the years, he has a whole rap on what he calls standing stones and all the different power, the ley lines that crosshatch the British Isles, which is one of the reasons why they got a head start on the rest and to colonize the rest of the world. But that's Stonehenge, and that's the Georgia Guidestones as well. And that's in this book. Okay, so you see it's part of the culture. But it goes both ways. It's part of the enemy's culture, but it's also part of the opposition. Because my whole deal here is the Yojimbo rather, and that is you get the two warring factions or parties amongst the elite fighting against each other. Then you climb to a high spot and watch them fight it out, because that's what's going on, right? We, the little people, the peasantry, we think it's the big boys, right? The Illuminati. I'm just using that as a blanket term. We think it's the Illuminati against us. No, it's about the Illuminati versus the Illuminati. They're always fighting with each other for empire, and they rope us into their little battles. They're not little; they're big battles. They're world wars, right? There's a current one that they're trying to rope us into, but we're going to sit this one out and let them duke it out, and from there we're going to pick up the pieces and rebuild American civilization. And if any other societies, nation states want to follow our example, they're welcome to do so, because they have been. The United States has been a beacon for many other, just like revolutionary France was for a certain while. But the United States, especially in the post-war period, has been a beacon for other nation states, even Russia, right? Post-Soviet Russia has a great deal of admiration for America, and that's not what you would find if you're watching CII Uncle Ted Turner's operation. At least he's the front man for it, which is in Atlanta. You notice CNN's not giving this fireworks display much play. I mean, I haven't checked CNN, but I'm going to see what their coverage is. I'm checking all the coverage. Usually the local news has been doing most of the reportage, but CNN's not doing, which tells me it's an organic operation. It's not a false flag per se, even though there's probably insiders who might have been involved, because I'm telling you, it's an Illuminati versus Illuminati battle that's taking place. There is a large faction within this ruling elite that does not agree, does not subscribe to the agenda as it's been. They might have subscribed to it philosophically while they were meeting at the Bilderberg conferences around the tables and all the great meals and all the prostitutes and children they were bringing in to entertain themselves. They might have agreed at that point, but when the implementation came out and they said, well, you're going to have to sacrifice your own family to our biowarfare regime, they said, wait a minute, we didn't sign up for this, right? So that's where we're at right now. I think the battle was joined about 2 years ago, and now we're seeing it start to roll out, I think, right? So there's some artwork from the book. And by the way, you notice I don't call it the Georgia Guide. Let me put my head back in here so you know I haven't abandoned you. And so you can see I make the little finger quotation marks. I don't call it the Georgia Guidestones because it ain't a guidestone for yous and me, is it? No, it ain't. It ain't no guidestone. It's a guidestone for the exterminationists, right? The people behind Captain America, Ted Turner, right? The front man for CIINN, right? Ted Turner. That's their guidestone. That's why I call it the cromlech. And as some of you, I read in the live stream here, you looked it up. Thank you very much for taking the initiative. And you found out that, hey, it's these rocks, it's these formations, it's these obelisks, it's these mystical, druidic, some say, formations. Yeah, that's a cromlech. So I put that in there purposely because I don't want to use their language. I use their mojo, and you're locked into their mojo. And this is from the book. Again, some of the artwork just seems kind of random put in there. But I say, hey, that looks suspiciously like Pete Buttigieg's family crest, right? Isn't he Maltese as well? He's a Maltese American. Isn't he a Knights of Malta, him and his father, Professor Buttigieg, who wrote the history of the Maltese people, Maltese Americans, who are almost like 95%, 90% Roman Catholic. No aspersions against the Catholic Church. I'm just saying that, hey, that might be something to check out. So there you go. That's one of their, Maltese cross. That's in the book. And let's see another piece of fun. I don't know what this is. Maybe you can tell me, but this looks like some kind of lamp or something. I don't know. And here is, what does it say there? I gotta open it. There's obeliscus. That must be the Latin version of obelisk. One of the nails of the Passion. And I guess that means it's a phallic symbol. Doesn't it look like the Washington phallus over there on the Capitol Mall? And you can see there's a mirror image as above, below, right? It's the pila, as they say in French, the pyramide inversée, right? The inverted pyramid at the Louvre, designed by I.M. Pei, a Chinese Freemason architect that put all the glass panes in the inverted pyramid that happened to number 666. Yes, I didn't count them myself, but I'll have to take it on the word of the people who are supposedly know. So that's in the book there. You got the Washington phallus. And I'm surprised that all the radical lesbians in Georgia didn't protest the Georgia Guidestones, because it's so misogynist. I mean, it's just a giant phallus out there in the middle of the field. I would think they'd go there and say, tear down the statue to manhood. But no, they're not going to do it, because they are the so-called GLBT community, if you want to call it, it's a synthetic community, is funded by these groups. So they're not going to be doing that, because that's not the part of the order. That looks like an ankh. It says the cross on, I can't remember. Anyway, you get the point here. And this type of reading material was part of the undergraduate education once upon a time, before the post-war period, when all students were told, oh, we're going to explore outer space. You got to be in science. You got to be in math. You got to study calculus and forget the humanities. It's kind of nice reading about the pathology. That's why they developed Joseph Campbell, so that we can have Star Wars in the future, and it'll just seem like a nice fairy tale, a space opera, just sort of an earlier age. I'm not giving Joseph Campbell his due credit, but I'm saying that that's the way Campbell's work has been adapted by these storytellers who said, well, it's been all a myth. All the science fiction people, right? These are all just fantasies of ancient civilizations who are projecting their own anxiety. This is Freudian too. He's a materialist, right? Even though he had an inner struggle with the dark side of humanity all through his life. So anyway, to continue the story here, we have representatives of the Royal Arch. This is today now. This is not yesteryear at Cornell University. And I'm not, by putting these people, this is public information, but putting their names and their faces up there, I'm not implying that they're in any way involved with the terror event recently. I'm just putting this out there, saying this is 2022. Okay, this is the Grand Lodge of Georgia. In preparing for this talk, as I told you, I wanted to come up with something different, because I know all the people on, YouTube, the instant experts, are going to give us the same garbage that we've been hearing for decades and decades and decades. I have read it. I understand it. I've seen it. I'm tired of it. I know there's more to it, and I have been doing state by state analyses of these Knights Templar Freemasonic conclaves from California to Connecticut, right? North to south, east to west. It's pervasive. But we're talking about Georgia in specific. So here's one person who is the worshipful Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Georgia. In other words, for the state of Georgia, he's the number one guy. And let me show you another one. You can see the regalia that's very familiar. He's the high priest of Royal Archmasons in Georgia. That's why I'm using these terms interchangeably, because they themselves have all these different nomenclature that are, Maybe they're even unclear to themselves. But look, he's in office right now. Okay, he was in office when the Georgia Guidestones were taken down. Was he and his group, were they behind it, or were they the group who were tearing it down? I don't know. But I think this particular network that goes back to before the American Civil War were in some way behind the resistance against Klaus. I'm just saying Klaus Schwab is because we know his ugly face, against the globalists, the NATOists, the United Nations. I hate to use their term because it has nothing to do with being united. It has nothing to do with nations. It's globalist. So let's continue. These are contemporary representatives of this ancient, because we're talking about, Civil Wars, contemporary history compared to their history. There's some other people. See, this is what CNN will do, right? Or the Good Family Guy, or the Simpsons, or the cartoons, or these ass clowns who do these comedies, right? They put Ben Stiller in there and some other jerkwad. It's the same characters, and they make fun. Oh yeah, it's the man in the funny hat. Yeah, right. These are your Sabbateans who are very threatened by the men in the funny hat. That's where the war might be happening. And again, I'm just speculating here. Okay. All right. So that's today, 2022, going into 2023. That's your royal arch. And then you have, okay, I mentioned your African American population because we've been told by BLT, BLM, Black Lives Matter, not bacon, lettuce, and tomato. Might as well be bacon, lettuce, tomato, except it's not as tasty. It's synthetic. It's like GLBTQ. It's globalist. It's Sabbatean. It's Frankist. It's Wall Street. It's City of London. They have us believe that all the different groups in American society have been at war from beginning to end, and not just through the civil rights movement, but post-civil rights, and now, right? Even now, 2022, I mean, you got like a very powerful black bourgeoisie in place, man. Look at, you got Michelle Robinson. She come out of was it Ariel? Talk about biblical. She come out of Ariel Investments, which is a black-owned capital investment fund. That's where Michelle Robinson come from. And Michelle Robinson got hooked up with a guy named Barack Obama who did an internship there, and they got matched up. So you got like a BBW, black transvestite, transsexual, married to the future president of the United States, right? You got that, and you got many other people were commenting that, yeah, there's a ton of them, and now we're beginning to see the pattern. I'm just alerting to you to the pattern because that's part of the takeoff or the takeover of the African American community, including kidnapping their finest specimens, mostly male, stealing their organs and putting in paper, right? Just like crushed paper, sewing them up, hoping that no one's mama is going to check up on what happened to them. That was last talk, by the way. So this is a warning, but hey, these fraternal African American historical fraternal organizations are looking after their people. Here we go. Can you read these smaller print there? I opened it up. Let me move that back there. I want to look at that insignia. Interesting. Jurisdiction of Georgia, because we're keeping it local here, Georgia. Right. John H. DeVoe was that's the Grand Commander. He's named after him. I saw his headstone. I didn't put it here. We'd have to check him out, look at his history, who he was. DeVoe, he might have had ancestors from France. By the way, there's the civilizational and imperial struggle that's involved here that was going on 200 years ago. It's going on today in 2022. And that's between the Empire of France, the Empire of Spain, and the British Empire, which was Georgia. Georgia, after all, was named after King George II, right, of the Church of England. He was also a Hanoverian. He's German. We heard him speak, if there are tape recorders back, he'd probably have a German accent. He probably didn't even speak any English, right? He's from the House of Hanover. as this was his father. And there's a little bit of House of Orange there as well. So and you say, oh, okay, that was then, this is now. No, the past is present in what we're seeing today. That's what I'm arguing here. And as usual, patriotic African Americans have been involved even since, before the days of the American Revolution, through the Civil War and all the great wars that have followed there. And this is the giveaway right here, Prince Hall affiliation. That is the Black Masons. We've talked a little bit about some of the Black African American secret societies that spawned the Robinson family and the Obama family. And there's another one I'll show you. Sorry, I have to go off camera. I found this recently. This is a piece of fiction by Ian K. Smith, Dr. Ian K. Smith, medical doctor. He's a twin, by the way. I think Dr. Mengele would be fascinated by him and his brother. He's African American. He graduated from Harvard. I think he was a student athlete. And he came out with this novel. I'm reading it now. It's called The Ancient Nine. He talks about how he was tapped into one of the final societies, not Skull and Bones, not Quill and Scroll, but one of the final societies. So the Black bourgeoisie is being brought in on one hand, but in order to do that, they got to marry female transsexuals. And they also have to perform a minstrel type service as comedians and actors and as athletes, right? Because back in the plantation days, they get all the big black bucks and get them fight each other. They put money on. I told you as recently as Muhammad Ali. It was a local Louisville businessman who owned Cassius Clay, who later was able to detach himself thanks to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They didn't say, hey, man, you're free. We have no claim on you. You are now Muhammad Ali, because they would not let him go and escape alive. I'm talking about the Louisville businessman. Had not Cassius Clay got the protection from the Nation of Islam, and they're badass, believe me. Okay, I mean, Malcolm X was a gangster. Right. Check out the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, who I have utmost respect for. Check out his background. He was known as the Charmer. He was in a Jamaican song group, and you can find his songs on YouTube. They're good. He was a good singer. So I'm getting off topic. I'm saying that the African American community has by any means, no matter all the different tricks that have been played on them, right, are truly resilient. And people of the colonial time saying that America or the British or England is the body, Asia is the crown, right? They're talking about the imperial, they're talking about Britannia, they're talking about John Dee's conception of planet Earth. They say England is the body, Asia is the crown, but the jewel is Africa, all right? So the metaphysicians of generations ago have been already laid out, and that's why there's so much interest in blackness and the black body, black women, black females, black breeders, black athletes, all of it. But they also have an intellectual tradition that I think is coming to their rescue. Finally, we figured out what the funny hats and the uniforms and the regalia were all about. And here is their, I guess it's cut off on the bottom there, but he has a title as the Exalted Leader. He's a Prince Hall Mason, and he's the main guy, as of this photo in Georgia, right? By the way, I found out there's a lot of activity of the Freemasons, Scottish Rite, the Knights Templar, right, conclaves, a lot of activity around Macon, Georgia, right? Just like I showed you that first stereoscopic photo, there's all these Knights Templar gathered together for a group photo. That's in the square of, not Atlanta, I said Atlanta, I misspoke. As Macon, Georgia. And Macon, Georgia, coincidentally or not, I don't know if it's a coincidence, also happens to be where Little Richard is from, Macon, Georgia. Little Richard, otherwise known as Richard Penniman. Just a little bit of trivia for you there. Okay, so you get where I'm going. I want to understand, and I don't have a, I haven't really begun to assess what went down the other day, but I have a strong, it's more than a suspicion, I have a strong working hypothesis that there are forces, and a lot of them have military backgrounds by special services and going back to probably, they're older now, but going back to the Vietnam era, but also more recent ones who've had experience in Afghanistan and throughout the Near East and elsewhere. They might have been. I don't know. I'm speculating there, and they're very much tied in with the soil, and they have a deep sense of pride in their country, America, and their state. And we're talking about Georgia specifically. And I say Georgia specifically because you can assume, or at least I'm assuming, that the same type of mobilization and organization and commitment can be found throughout the South. I'm talking about the states of Alabama, I'm talking about the states of Louisiana, right? Talking about the state of Mississippi. And I'm even talking about the state of California. A lot of people don't realize this because they just see Dianne Feinstein and Fred Bull Schiff and Ted Lieu, the couple flamers in Congress, and all these other people, and these Hollywood people. They think that that's Cali. Don't use that term, by the way. I hate it. It's California. They think that's California. But no, California is full of a bunch of rednecks. And I say that with pride because I am a yellow redneck. You dig? Right. So don't get distracted by the sort of celebrity love fest, the self-love of the California contingent, because most California is very much like Georgia and Louis. In fact, a lot of people came from those states are here, and they're still out in the woods. Right. They're still fighting for freedom. Some of them want to separate from mainstream California. They have this movement. They want to create a state of Jefferson. Some have different names. Anyway, I don't want to digress too much in that. I'm just trying to clarify that Uncle Boris the Spider, Boris Johnson, looks unhappy. Do you think it's just a coincidence that now he's out of power and the Georgia cromlech went kaboom? Because that is a British operation. It's a banker, New World Order, if you will, operation that is now coming to an end, I believe. And not that I'm anticipating, expecting, or predicting, or in any way encouraging this, but I don't think that this is going to stop with blowing up inanimate objects. Do you know what I mean? Because looking through world history, I don't care if you're from China, right, Philippines, a Black African, South of Sahara, or a Mediterranean society, these transformations can be oftentimes bloody, but it doesn't have to be this time around. If people are watching this show are smart enough to stand down and say, we've had enough of this, right? We've had enough. Come and join the Prosperity Party by supporting the American people, the American Republic, right? Instead of Klaus Schwab, right? Or Robert Mueller, not the FBI dude. I mean, this globalist and all the different think tanks and all the different assets, banking assets that run the university. You're infested. The university, including Georgia Tech. In fact, by the way, they got rid of Katehi, the transplant, supposedly Greek, but she's a Sabbatean. She's not Greek. She claims she was. They put her at my place, right? I came to loggerheads with her, but once they got rid of her, they put someone there from Georgia Tech, the Georgia Institute of Technology. He's an African American man, right? He's an engineer, right? So, hey, let's see how that plays out. They had to put someone in there to get rid of, and I just use that example because it comes to a point where the transgressions become so egregious. They become so in your face, like going and spraying students and peaceful protesters with bear gas in the face. Come on, ordering that and all the faculty members, not all of them, but a whole list. I have the list of all you faculty members, UC and administrators who were at the meeting where Katay says, I'm going to gas them students. I got your names. I got the list on you. You dig? And it's not just in my sole possession, right? It's in circulation. I haven't put it out here in the channel, but the point is that people just have had enough in America. They've had enough around the world, and it's time for the people who are behind this. And you're watching this channel. It's time for you to stand down and join the party, right? Let's have some non-nitrite hot dogs and some organic beef hamburgers and wave the sparklers on the 4th of July. There doesn't have to be any more explosions. That's the beauty of what we're seeing today, because we got little Uncle Boris Johnson. He's very unhappy because he's out of power now, right? Do you want to maintain what little power you have? I'm talking to you, Mr. Globalist and Mrs. Globalist. Do you want to maintain any sort of role in American society into the future? If you do, listen to these words. Heed the will of the American public. And this is not a threat. It's not a threat. It's just history, right? Just check out your standard civilization. It could be mainstream history. Doesn't matter. It's going to give you the same conclusion. Better yet, read the Bible. It talks about the rise and fall of these different empires, time and time again. The building up of the temple of dissolution, right? The people fall away from the righteous path, and look what happens time and time again. Do you think you're going to be an exception to that just because you think you figured out how to supposedly create, because most of it's hype, self-replicating organisms, right? Are you going to control us through all your different HARP and DARPA net and all that? Well, you know what? Even the people that you've been mind controlling have now figured out, and they've taken control of their lives as a result. They figured out that they're not going crazy. They know it's coming from an external source. And now that they know that, you don't have any more power over them. You're losing a grip. And where's all this information? It's been coming up from these secret societies themselves. Right, some of them go off the reservation, so to speak, and they hand the books over to people like Anthony Sutton, and they write books on it, and then it percolates down. It goes on the conspiracy sides. You got Eustace Mullins writing his book. He's getting the information from the great poet Ezra Pound. Who was in Italy and learning the different secret society information, and T.S. Eliot and all these people, and circulating. So now it's generalized knowledge, ladies and gentlemen. It is generalized knowledge amongst just the ordinary American person who just 2 years ago would think this is all crazy stuff. It's a bunch of idiots that done blew up the Georgia cromlech. Well, this guy, which I'll show you in a moment, and then I'll come back to you and we'll close out. I think he is secretly celebrating in his heart what went down, but for camera purposes, saying, oh, it's terrible. And he's a Georgian. He said, oh, them idiots. That's dialect for idiot, right? Them idiots done, we're a granite country here. We're a coral country. They done got rid of the only tourist attraction for miles around. He pretends he's unhappy, but I think he's gleeful. Here we go.
It is, it's somebody years ago put up some kind of big monument, and they wrote some sayings on it in a lot of different languages. Well, recently we had somebody running for a political office that said they were satanic and that they would destroy them, be the first thing they would do if they got elected. Of course, that person lost. But because some people say that, if they did destroy them, that would be wise. People, somebody puts up a bunch of rocks, and it's a tourist attraction. People come from all over the world to see, and not that much going on in Elberton, And if somebody blew it up, it's just going to be, it's one of those things that makes you shake your head and go, oh my goodness, freaking believable. But we'll go see. At some point I'll drive up there, or I'll probably see it in the paper. Somebody will put up some pictures of what's there. It'd be interesting to see what's going on with that. I might jump in the car and ride up to the Guidestones and see what happened up there. One of our neighbors said she heard an explosion during the night. We work in a town This is the granite capital of the world. We work in a town where people work in the quarries and have access to explosives because, you know, that's what you do in a quarry. You drill holes in granite and use an explosive to blow things apart to make granite that they use for tombstones and all sorts of things. Anyway, it's not that far-fetched around here for somebody to get their hands on some dynamite. I don't want to say too much because I might be, if I say too much, I might be on someone's list as being an antichrist. They might come over here and blow me up too. I don't know. You
There you go. I think he's safe. But a final word to people who are from outside of America who are watching this, right? People who are out in Belgium and NATO observers and your United Nations, your behavioral scientists, you psychohistorians, you Human Terrain Project anthropologists who are working for the Pentagon, right? But especially people who are like Klaus Schwab level, where you're really out of touch with the world, not to mention you don't really understand American culture, American society, American civilization. But as that gentleman alluded to, in America, we blow up shit. We do it for fun. You know, that's what America does. So good luck on your takeover plans, man, because you know what? You can ban guns. But hey, you know, I'm of Japanese background, Okinawan. You can ban guns all you want. I'm into edge weapons, you know. So have at it. And we know about your biowarfare scheme too, and we don't consent to that either. So anyway, I'm really, and as people here in the live stream, people who are watching, let's thank our, you know, give bless, you know, thanks and our good fortune, blessings that we've been blessed with. We're living in such incredible epical times. We're seeing it all, you know, come down, and it's a real joyful time right now, and it's something that we should welcome instead of run away from, or let alone be fearful of. This is cause for celebration, not because of the destruction. I'm talking about the larger reawakening, let's call it, of the American and the people around the world. So please share this video with one and all. We're going to prevail. This is not just brave talk. I'm just my reading and my understanding of American civilization. You know, we love dynamite. We blow up tree stumps, right? If there's like frozen outhouse, you know, you put half a stick of dynamite down there to unclog it. You know, that's just what we do. It's a huge, beautiful country full of people who are interested in preserving liberty. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.